back. So now that we know about the debugger, I'm never going to use the console log again. Well, maybe I am, but I shouldn't. So I'm just going to remove the debugger from here, and I'm going to move it up here because I want to make the test that I'm getting into this folder column when I'm rebuilding my folders. Let's just try and run this again. And notice the debugger is already running from the last lesson. But what I'll do is just I'll refresh the page right here, and then I'll try and click this guy, and boomy, we hit in the debugger. So I know that I get in here right now, and I'm doing it by testing that the column contains a main function, right? Or a main property, right? That's how I know that I'm inside this guy right here. So that's kind of a way, but what if the main was undefined for some reason? Maybe because I didn't set it yet, then I wouldn't get into this and it wouldn't know it was actually a folder column, right? So that's kind of a problem. That's a weird problem we have right here. So instead I want to start using the instance of like we talked about in the last lesson. But to do that, we need to make a few changes. First of all, to even use the instance of, we need to convert the folder column from being an interface into actually being a class. Now the reason for that is, we talked about this earlier as well, go and check the interfaces with this class video if you want to, but the problem is actually that an interface will be removed completely from the JavaScript code, right? So where are we going to store information about what properties belongs inside a folder column if everything is removed from the code, right? So that's why we are actually using classes instead here, because then JavaScript will store some information when we go from TypeScript to JavaScript. There'll still be enough information to know that this is actually going to be specifically a folder column, right? So let's do it. Let's start out by figuring out how to make this into a class. And it's pretty simple, pretty simple. Right now we have the interface column. We're going to keep that because I want all columns to have a display name as a minimum. That's just a way for me to make sure that even though I'm using a file column, a folder column, whatever column, then I want to be absolutely sure that it has at least a display name. Good. So we're not going to change anything there. Jumping into the folder column, we're going to change it from an interface into a class, just like I said. By the way, when you notice imports like this, just get them out of the way. That was a gray one, you're gone. And now to call myself a class, a folder column, I can't extend the column anymore because I'm not an interface, so I can't extend another interface. I have to instead implement an interface. And it pretty much just means that the folder column is now of the type, a class of the type column. And that means that he needs to have a display name. That's why you saw the error. I need a display name and I need something else to call myself a column, right? So that was what I had to do to explain to the system that I am actually a column. I had to add the display name. Let me just try and move it again and show you. Notice right here, class folder column incorrectly implements interface column because it needs the display name to call itself a column. There we go. That's why we need a display name. And while I'm in here, let's just do the same thing with the file column, because I also want that guy to be a class from now on that implements the column right here. And then that, of course, also needs the display name to call itself a file column because it implements column right now. Sweet. So now we have two classes available. So now everything should be working, right? Now we should hit the breakpoint. If we just go in here now and we make an instance of here again, we won't get an error anymore at least. So let's just say instance of. Notice the error came because we tried to do an instance of an interface. And TypeScript knows that you cannot do that with an interface inside JavaScript. So that's why TypeScript kind of throws an error in your face and say you cannot do an instance of an interface, right? Let's try and go into our code and see right here if we're getting to the breakpoint or if we're getting errors. No errors, but we're not hitting the breakpoint, right? So that means that we are not getting through this if statement, so we still don't know if this is a folder column. We need to do one more thing. Because when we are starting using classes like this, we also need to kind of implement the function to actually start initializing classes. So if we scroll down where we create a folder column right here, we're actually not creating a TypeScript class. We are actually creating a JavaScript object right here. Now this is not, even though this is a cool way to work with the code right here, we're still just creating a stupid JavaScript object right here. If we want to start creating an actual folder column in TypeScript, we need to do it like this. We'll say equal new folder column like this. There we go. Let me just put those down there. That pretty much means that now I'm creating an empty folder column class instance, right? So now we have a real folder column that I can start doing instance of right here later on. That's how you make a new class. That's how you initiate a class. Now when I have that, I can now start setting the properties of a folder column. And again, TypeScript will be very helpful. It'll just say, so this is the main right here, okay. And let's also add to the folder column, let's also add the display name. That's going to be the folder name. This is, if you're used to any type of type object-oriented language, this is very easy, and you should be. When you're using TypeScript, you should be kind of used to using some kind of object-oriented language. Sweet. So now we've added two things. We've added so that it knows this is a class now, and we also start using the initializer to actually create a new folder column, and then we put in some information about the folder column right here. Now, is this helpful? Let's try and see. Let's try and jump in here again. We hit the breakpoint because now it knows the column is an instance of folder column. And that doesn't matter if any of the properties are null or anything like that, it'll still do the right check. So we just have a lot stronger type safe check right here than what we had before. So that's all you have to do. Now you're starting to use classes. You'll get a bit more JavaScript code in the end when you compile this, but who cares? You have real instance of validation against folder columns now. Now we'll have to do one more thing because I'm not a huge fan of using properties directly. So now you can either do it like this or else we'll have to create a constructor, and I'll just show you how to do the constructor in the next lesson. So let's try and have some fun there and see you next time.